Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell and DK on the sticks in the background. We're going to talk about another PFF video today, or ranking today, I should say. And this time it's PFF ranking the NFL's best offensive play callers ahead of the 2021 season. And they only ranked the top 6 in this one. So this wasn't a full league ranking. They just mentioned the top 6 play callers going into 2021. Some surprising omissions on this list, Jimmy, which we're going to get into. But before we do, give us a like, give us a subscribe, find us on all your podcasting sources, and find us on Newsbreak as well. We appreciate the support. But Jimmy, let's get into this list. Where are we starting at?
Yeah, first of all, if you're an analytics company, boo on you for only ranking the top 6. This is your job. So
can we at least get 10? At least?
Yeah, at least. But like, this is how you make money. So come on now. But I want to start with we'll start right at the top. I'm actually going to jump ahead because this is juicy news. If you guys haven't seen it, Greg Roman is not on the list. So let's just skim down the entire list real quick.
Yeah, quickly run it down.
You got Brian DeBall at number 2 from Buffalo.
Brian Dable.
Dable, whatever. Andy Reid at Kansas City. John Gruden, inexplicably at number 4. Joe Brady for the Panthers, number 5. Byron Leftwich at number 6, bringing up the caboose. So you'll see no Greg Roman. And also, if I'm not mistaken, no Kevin Stefanski.
Nope.
No Kevin Stefanski, but we'll stick with Greg Roman. So, Matt LaFleur, I just want to say this off the top. This is where I want to go. How are you the best play caller in the NFL when you have a Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame, and by my eyeball test, the best quarterback I've ever seen play the position? He's last year's MVP. You're on a 4th down and you call a field goal because you're going to depend on your defense instead. How are you the best play caller when you make that decision?
Unreal. And I think Aaron Rodgers showed he would agree with you in his post-game press conference when he said he doesn't make that call. He doesn't know why. He was clearly irritated by the fact that he took the ball out of his hands in the most important moment. I would completely
be so heartbroken if I was Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, I completely
That's what you
agree
do.
with
Everything you do, off season, everything you do it for that moment.
Yeah. Unreal. I mean, while I'm not, here to trash Matt LaFleur, I'm just surprised at the amount of respect he's getting when you just look at, like you mentioned, he's got a Hall of Famer. He's got maybe the most talented quarterback in the history of the league when you just look at what he can do on the field. Incredibly impressive. And so I looked at the numbers. I said, let me look at the numbers then. So, it must be something spectacular. It must be really showing out. So I look back at 2019, his first season in Green Bay. And the Green Bay Packers scored a total of 376 points. Okay. Because that's what a play caller's job is, right? To put points on the board.
Yep.
That's the whole point of it. So he scored 376 points, or his team did, in 2019. Ravens 531. Okay. So
offensive points, right?
Yeah, offensive points. This is points for. So massive difference there between where the Packers were and where the Ravens were. Then I look at his second season because he had a pretty good year last year. They went to the NFC Championship and were pretty close to getting to the Super Bowl. And in that season last year, his team scored 509 points, right? So they did bounce back. They did jump ahead of where the Ravens came in at 468, but still, you put the two years together, and it's not close because 2019, it wasn't even you're not even talking about in the same stratosphere. So while the Ravens did come up just shy of that 468, they scored 468 points this year. So just shy of that, we're edged out. When you look at the 2 years, it's not even in the ballpark. It's not even close. You're talking well over 100 points more. So a little surprised to see him not just on the list where Roman's not even on the list, but number 1 on the list. I think is a lot of love for LaFleur. I'm a little surprised at this type of love.
Yeah, and getting to number 2, one of the things, obviously, that credit to the offensive coordinator in Buffalo in the progression of Josh Allen
Yep.
And, the breakout season he had last year, like all the credit in the world. But I know the reason I'm bringing this up specifically is I know a lot of people are going to talk to us and comment about Greg's lack of ability in the passing game. Well, go look at Buffalo's rushing attack.
Pathetic.
It was non-existent. I mean, absolute trash.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you want to say about Greg Roman not being on this list because he's just a good run caller, you can say the same exact thing about Brian Dable. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Yeah, Dable all day and then some, right? Like you can use that same exact logic because I think they had 31 rushing yards against us. I think their rushing leader is their quarterback, just like us. And so, I mean, it's just to me ridiculous that argument is being used against Greg because at the end of the day, like you said, your job is to put points on the board. So I understand why this guy's on the list.
Yeah,
but you understand my logic here, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, these are both good play callers, but the fact of the matter is, for one, they don't have the resume that a lot of these other guys that are missing, have. And so here's the thing: I give Dable credit. I think that the transformation that Josh Allen has made throughout his career, it has been incredible, and a lot of the credit goes to Dable for helping that along. So I'm not too critical, but I see your point. The fact that they had a running game that was so inept that they wouldn't even turn to it in the most obvious running situations. They chose to throw it through the whole playoffs because they just had zero confidence. And I don't think that's just a reflection of personnel because they got some pretty good players there. I think that's more of the construction of the offense and the confidence level of their run game, which is, that's not a good look. But number 3, Andy Reid, no question that he deserves to be on this list, deserves to be in the top 3. Kind of surprised to see him as low as 3.
Yeah, he's my number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a fantastic coach. Now, we also agree that he's got great personnel, but I think Andy Reid's a big part of bringing those groceries in, as they like to say. He's not just cooking. He's I'm sure a big part in who they sign, who they draft. And all that goes into building the team. So,
but his creativity, right? Don't you think, Glenn? It's unmatched. Like I feel like all the other coaches that get credit for their creativity, they're derivatives of Andy Reid. In a lot of cases, not all of them, but like a lot of their cases, his creativity is just so unmatched, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's phenomenal, and like you said, it seems like he's certainly got the Ravens' number as of late, and it seemed like anytime the Wink and the Ravens drew up a blitz, he had the perfect counter called for it, anticipated it, and always seemed to get his team in the position to make a good play and get positive yards. So yeah, Andy Reid, hard to argue with his presence in this list, and honestly, the only thing I would argue is that he deserves to be higher. John Gruden coming in number 4 for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Look at the first sentence right there, Glenn.
This one is tough to explain.
Shout out to DK for pointing that one out. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, and I would certainly agree with him. I mean, if you just look at, relevance, the Raiders, it's hard to explain, and they try and explain it and say that, well, they get a lot of yards despite the fact that they don't have a very successful offensive line. They both rated, pass blocking and run blocking were both rated in the lower half of the league. And yet they were able to turn out top 10 yardage. And man, that's called building like a case to fit your one narrative. Like that, you can, it's just like they say, you can make stats, fit your narrative.
Must be an attorney helping to make this list, right? Like
exactly. I mean, that is an absolute ridiculous way of looking at things. I don't understand John Gruden being here. Now, the one thing he had from last year is that they were able to beat the Chiefs. I mean, that was his one accomplishment, because other than that, they weren't completely relevant. And they're 15. What are they? 15 and 17.
Come on.
They don't even have a 500 record. I mean, I'm not understanding this. Do you think this is just too much love for John Gruden and all that he is, and not just him as a play caller?
Yeah. So I think that this whole list are people that are poring over numbers, and they're doing this instead of stepping back and just watching football objectively. Like, simply watch the Ravens offense, right? And then watch the Raiders offense in a game-to-game basis. And you tell me with all clarity of conscience and of heart that the Raiders play calling is better than the Ravens. You will be unable to do so. Like, it is undeniable. But just watch it. Like, I think this whole thing, I mean, even Joe Brady last year, to me, he is the empty calories king in that, his quarterback is the same thing. right? And that, Teddy Bridgewater is steady Teddy, right? Like, so to me, their argument around Joe Brady is that they did something with nothing because McCaffrey was gone, right? And I understand, but right. So at the end of the day, what became of it? You know what I mean?
It's like a bad team that scores a bunch of points and lose. I mean,
Atlanta Hawks in the 90s.
Exactly. I mean, you're gonna score. I mean, unless you're completely inept. I mean, you're gonna score. But like you said, it's more than just the, I don't know. I don't understand half the people on this list. I don't know if this is like up. I think they should rename the list to like up and coming play callers. I mean, then you might have to take Andy Reid off because he's certainly not up and coming. And Gruden. But it seems like the other 5 on this list or other 4 on this list are all like newcomers that are up and coming and trying to make their mark. I'm not sure why they're getting this kind of level of respect. You mentioned Joe Brady, but I think the same could be said. I mean, Byron Leftwich. I mean, how much of his success can be accredited to Mr. Tom Brady? And I mean, my goodness, because you look at the year before. Before Tom Brady got here, his quarterback threw 30 interceptions, right?
Yeah, he's the only one. So that means that 100% of the blame is on Jameis Winston. That's what it means. Because if it's not, then you can't, you can't give 100%. It must have been the problem with Jameis, because that means that you were that good of a coordinator that he was hamstringing you, not the other way around. Because just like you said, he's 6 on this list, and a lot of it has to do with Tom Brady, because you were also the same coordinator that couldn't stop your quarterback from throwing interceptions.
Yeah,
like
couldn't. 30.
Right. They're gonna make a 30 for 30 about the 30 for 30 year of Jameis Winston. Like, you realize it was that historic, but like, people don't think about it. You know what I mean? You couldn't make your quarterback not so turnover heavy that like 30, like you said. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, absolutely insane. And the fact that Greg Roman is nowhere to be found on this list, despite the fact that the Ravens score more points than any other team in the last 2 years, and by far have the highest scoring differential over the last 2 seasons, is absolutely blasphemous. I understand that there's been criticisms about his passing game, and some of them are relevant. Some of them are just, but
Glenn, I got to ask you this real quick about the stat. How does point differential work? Because some people might not understand it. So how does that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just how many points your team has given up versus how many points your team has scored. And it's really not close. I mean, I know, so I didn't want to spend too much time on, because that of course brings in the talented defense and what they've been able to do. But regardless, I mean, there's not too many teams in the league that have consistently plus differentials, much less teams that have, let's see, they had 100 and plus 165 last year, which was number 1 in the league, by the way. And the next closest team was 20 points behind, and that was the Saints. And then in 2019, you want to talk about point differential. Holy smoke. The Ravens were plus 249 for the season. So far and away above every other team. The next closest was the Patriots in Tom Brady's last year at 195. So still 50 less, more than 50 less than the Ravens. So, I mean, it's so ridiculous that you don't see them on. Every analyst has pointed to the Ravens' offensive attack and calling it the most innovative and impressive, ground attack in the history of the league. They broke records over the last 2 years, is rushing for more yards than any team in the history of this long storied league, and a league that started as a primarily run-based, that's how offenses were built around.
It's like the longest offensive stat, right? Like,
so the fact that you break records when you're talking about that is absolutely insane.
Yeah, we're talking about records going back before the Model T.
Before teams ever even threw the ball, there was no forward pass.
Right.
That's all they did was run. Right. And the Ravens still.
Imagine how good Lamar Jackson would have been back then.
Whew. Oh my goodness. They would have had to read it. I tell you what, it wouldn't have been the Lombardi trophy. It would have been the Lamar trophy.
But let me say this too, because I talked about how the Byron Leftwich, like the dichotomy there. So basically what PFF is saying by leaving Greg Roman off this list is that Lamar Jackson gets all the credit.
Yeah.
That none of it is to the play calling. And I think that is insane, because I've said it before. He made Tyrod Taylor like $30 million. Tyrod Taylor was nothing before and nothing after Greg Roman. Period. End of story. Go look it up. Nothing before, nothing after. Right? Colin Kaepernick, kind of the same situation. Right now, obviously, I think Lamar is gonna, if Greg, eventually leaves, I think it's a little different with Lamar because he's the most talented quarterback he's ever had. But man, I think it's an absolute insult and a slap in the face. In any statistical way you want to break it down, Greg Roman belongs on this list. Easy. And then on top of that, just watch the football game. Watch the offense. Watch the deception. Watch the consistency. How many times did our offense past 2 years just hum down the field and put it in the end zone? I mean, time after time, the consistency of it.
First drive scoring, the Ravens were setting records. And the first drive, everyone knows, is scripted. I mean, the first however many plays was 15,
all
20.
The OC.
It's all scripted, and no one did it better than Greg Roman and the Ravens. So it doesn't make any sense. I don't know if it, I like the fact that I've seen some play callers on here that I recognize, but where is Sean Payton a play caller? Because we know that's his offensive scheme. So if he's the play caller, he should be on this list. I mean, it's absolutely another glaring omission not having
who's
Sean
the
Payton.
Rams kid?
Sean McVay.
Sean McVay, exactly.
Another guy led his team to a Super Bowl. Like, what if these guys? I don't understand it.
He's
I mean,
reinvented that offense on the fly, and they're still making the playoffs.
And already at his age has a coaching tree. That who at 35 has a coaching tree?
He's going to be a 40-year-old grandpa, one of those guys.
So yeah, I mean, there's guys that I think are missing off this list, but no bigger name in my opinion than Greg Roman. You just can't leave a guy who's done the job of an OC better than anyone in the league, and you leave him off the list. I don't understand it. And also an offense that looks like it has more weapons than he's ever had the fortune of coaching since at least he's been in Baltimore of having. I mean, I don't understand, because so even if you're saying, well, yeah, but we're not talking about what they've done the past. We're talking about what they could do this year. Well, okay, so he has more talent than he's ever had in the offensive side of the ball.
Way more than 2019. Think about how much more experience Lamar Jackson has, how much more consistency and time they have together. Think about the wide receiver. Glenn, remember that video a while back you ran through the wide receiver core and literally, involuntarily, you cringed.
It was bad.
Like, you didn't even mean to. And, you just read through a list, and then you look at it now, and it's like, what? And then you look at the potential offensive line. I mean, it just... Even though the tight end room and all these things, the running back room, there's so many ways that he can get creative. That, you're absolutely, as far as potential in this coming year, you have that. Of all the arguments we've made today, that is the best argument.
Yeah, how do you have Matt LaFleur at number one when nobody knows whose quarterback's going to be?
Yeah, he's going to have Jordan Love back there throwing ducks.
Yeah, that's what I hope. Aaron, hold out.
Yeah.
Don't go there, and we'll see if Matt LaFleur is truly the number one play caller, because, I mean, he's the number one play caller. He should be able to do it with any quarterback.
It should be a system thing at that point, right?
I mean, bring Jordan Love in, he's going to carry him to 10 to 12 wins. We
know that Sean Payton can do it with Taysom Hill, so shoot, you better do it, right?
That's right. I mean, it should be so easy.
Sean's not even on the list.
I mean, it's just ridiculous to put him at number one. But anyway, let us know what you guys think. Are we crazy for thinking Greg Roman should be up there? Are we missing something that when we don't see